Okay, we're doing small intestine channel. Small intestine 1 is the Jing well. So we find that at the end of the channel. So it starts at the lateral or ulnar side of the pinky. This is the ulna, this is the radius. So this would be the ulnar side, and this will be the radial side. Ulnar, radial. So heart ends on the radial side, and small intestine starts on the ulnar side. So the Jing well is a 1/10 of a sun from the nail bed. And then if you bend, you can see where the phalange meets the metacarpal and this joint. Small intestine 1, small intestine 2 is distal to the metacarpal phalangeal joint. That's this joint right here. And it's going to go a little bit towards the palm side of the bone. And small intestine 3 will be just proximal to the same joint. And if we, can you make a fist like that? Not too hard. Make a fist. There is a part where the skin folds. On most people there's one distinct fold. Some people have two. So right where that fold is right where the point is. Okay. So we have small intestine 1, 2, 3. Small intestine 4, we have to palpate. Don't try to palpate through the muscle here. This muscle right here is too thick to try to palpate through. So feel for the bone up here, closer to the dorsal side. So we've got small intestine 3, and we're going to palpate up. Here's the end of the metacarpal, and then here is a wrist bone called the triquetra, and in between this metacarpal and the next bone right here, small intestine 4. And if I go just over that bone, I'll be between the triquetral and the end of the ulna, and that's small intestine 5. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, small intestine 6 has a unique way of being located. Okay, the arm's extended. This is for small intestine 6. I'm going to put my finger right here on top of the styloid process of the ulna. Ulna bone is here. And I'm going to have my patient take her hand to her chest slowly, and I'm going to follow it, just keeping my finger right there, flat on your chest. As she pivots her hand, I can feel a tendon move off of there. So here's the bone, and then there's a tendon, and there's a space in between. That space in between is small intestine 6. Small intestine 6. So from here we need small intestine 7. You can just hold your hand just like that. And we're going to locate that between the bone and the muscle. This is bone. This is the muscle. All the way up, you can push the muscle away from the bone. And if you run your finger, you can feel there's a gap between those. That is where the needle goes. If you put your needle way over here in the muscle, it's wrong. If you put your needle way over here past the bone, it's wrong. It has to be between the bone here and the muscle here. It's located 5 cm proximal to small intestine 5. Small intestine 5. And small intestine 8 is here, so we'll go ahead and locate that one. Small intestine 8 is between the olecranon process and the medial epicondyle of the humerus, in a soft spot in between. Okay, small intestine 8. And then we'll locate small intestine 7. I'll put my 0 here and my 12 here, and it's 5 cm proximal to small intestine 5, between the muscle and the bone. Small intestine 1 is the Jing well. 2, 3. Here's the joint. 2 is distal, 3 is proximal. 4 is between the triquetral bone and the metacarpal. 5 is between the triquetral and the ulna. 6 is on the dorsal side of the wrist. 7 is 5 cun proximal to small intestine 5 on the line drawn from small intestine 5 to small intestine 8. And small intestine 8 is located between the olecranon process and the medial epicondyle of the humerus. Okay, so we did small intestine 1 through 8. That went from the distal end of the pinky all the way up to the elbow. And now the next point on small intestine is on the back. So from here, we go 1 cun up from the axillary fold, just like that, straight up for small intestine 9. Small intestine 10, you have to find the spine of the scapula here, and directly up from the axillary fold and inferior to the spine of the scapula, there's a small depression right here. I'm going to draw the scapular spine so that you can see it. I'm palpating for it here above and below, so I can follow it over all the way out here. You can always start out here at the AC joint, acromioclavicular joint, and follow the bone across. This is the medial border of the scapula, right here. And here's the scapular spine. Here's the medial border of the scapula. Here is the inferior angle. So that's generally 90% accurate, the borders of the body model scapula. So here's small intestine 9, small intestine 10. Now small intestine 11, we measure from the midpoint, coming out here at the edge of the scapula to the medial border, we find the halfway point. And then we find the inferior angle of the scapula, which is the longest part. And if we divide that into thirds, right there, there's a depression. You just have to make sure your measurements are equal. And there's a depression there. That's the important thing, is that you find a depression in the center. Now the book also says that you can draw an equilateral triangle right here, but I find that people's bodies don't really allow for that because people have had injuries and they overuse certain muscles and their posture changes. And so unless you've got somebody really young with perfect posture, that won't always play out. So you can see her equilateral triangle would actually be, these two would be longer than this side of the triangle. Okay, so that's 11. Okay, small intestine 11. Small intestine 12 is above 11. Directly above small intestine 11. In the supraclavicular fossa. And there will be a depression if we raise the arm. Small intestine 13 is located superior to the scapular spine at the medial end. So this is the scapular spine. Let me take your arm forward just a tad. Okay, scapular spine is here. This is the medial end. So if we come here and we follow that across, any tenderness there? Here? Okay. And a tender depression at the medial end of the scapula above the scapular spine. Small intestine 14 is located 3 cun lateral to the lower border of T. Okay, so the most prominent is C7. And then when I come down from that, that's T1. So I want to go to the lower border of T1.
I'm going to come up there.
And I want to go to the 3 sun line lateral. And we say that that lines up with the medial border of the scapula, which we'll put it right here.
See? Coming up here.
SI15 is 2 sun lateral to the lower border of C7. Okay, so the most prominent is here, that's C7. And this, if I go and align with this right here, this is the 3 sun
Put my
line.
feet in here.
But I only want 2, so I can divide this. 1, 2, 3. My son's a little bit bigger than this measurement. We can make that into thirds. Okay, now we're on to small intestine 16. It's on the neck. So 9 through 15 are on the back. And now we're at the neck. So this one is level with the laryngeal prominence and on the posterior border of the SCM, sternocleidomastoid muscle.
Can I sit here?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so on women, the laryngeal prominence is a little harder to locate. Sometimes it is. I can palpate it here. Depends on the woman. Hold on, let me just check. That might be the top of the hyoid, or top of the thyroid cartilage. That's a hyoid bone. That is the top of it. So here's the top of the thyroid cartilage. I want to come down just below that. Okay, let me get this level. Can you turn your head that way? When she turns her head, I can see the SCM muscle here, and I want to be on the posterior side.
Baby.
That's small intestine 16. And small intestine 17 is located behind the jaw. Are you able to turn a little bit more? Head down just a little. Here's the jawbone. Here's the back. Here's the curve and the bottom. Okay. Where I want to look is back here. And just off the and just off the angle of the mandible here, there's a depression right there behind it. And that's small intestine 17. And these are both window of heaven points. So to locate small intestine 18, we're going to use the outer corner, and we're also going to use the zygomatic bone. That's what we call the cheekbone. And you can see that under the cheekbone, it's just soft tissue, there's muscle, and deep to the cheek are the teeth. Okay, so I'm going to come straight down from the outer canthus and go just under the zygomatic bone. And people with different genetics have very different zygomatic bones. It's very interesting. So that is small intestine 18. Thank you for letting me write on your face. And one more point, small intestine 19. Small intestine 19 is located just in front of the tragus. The tragus is the part of the ear that creates this triangle right here. And you'll find that if you palpate here, you can feel a gap between the bone and the ear. So if you put your finger right in front of that tragus and ask your patient to open their mouth, open your mouth please, it creates a deep gap, okay, right in front of the tragus. And that is small intestine 19. Okay. Stomach 7, open. Okay, the bone is pushing right here, the bone from the jaw. Okay, and close. When she closes, there's an obvious depression. Stomach 7. Small intestine 16, level with the laryngeal prominence and on the back side of the SCM. And remember, if you're not in the same position as you originally located it, the superficial anatomy, the skin, changes position. So where you have marks is going to change. So to check your points, you have to put your body model or yourself back into the same position as when you located. SI17 is right behind the angle of the mandible. SI18 we locate from the front. We go from the outer canthus straight down under the zygomatic arch. And SI19 we locate in front of the tragus of the ear. Open please. When they open, the condyle of the mandible goes forward and creates a gap. And when it's open, it's here, and that's what helps us locate stomach 7. And then close. When they close, now we can't fill that gap, but there is a soft spot here. So stomach 7, SI19. Small intestine 19, we locate it with the mouth open, and We needle it with the mouth open. Stomach 7, we locate with the mouth open and needle with the mouth closed.